right, welcome to I think it's the 11th episode of the Bradley Bennett Show, and we have a special guest on today. We're going to talk about the 3% movement. I want to welcome Paul Kras to the show. We're going to dispel maybe the myths, I don't know, and we're going to talk about the 3% movement, what it is. We're going to hit on some hot topics. I know there's a lot of interest in the 3% movement, and there's a lot of people who follow me on different social media platforms that are involved in the 3% movement. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you for having me, Bradley. Appreciate it.
So I have some questions for you. I'm going to have you help me create a disclaimer, if you don't mind. Am I part of the 3% movement?
No, sir.
Okay, and we've known each other for what, 2-3 years?
About 3 years now. Yes, sir.
About 3 years. And do we agree about everything?
Absolutely not.
Have we had heated debates about specific opinions of ours that may not be the same or similar?
Yes, sir. 100%.
All right. So getting that out of the way, I tell everybody I'm a complete independent, and I appreciate everybody's right to their free speech and their ideals. And so we're going to talk today, kind of give a 30,000-foot view and dispel some of the myths, because Paul and I have had wonderful conversations, wonderful not always being in agreement, but regarding different opinions on what's happening currently. So I want to start off with having you tell us about 30,000-foot view of what are the 3%ers.
So I think the 3%ers, from what I understand, are not necessarily a complete organization, as some people may think, where we're showing up to a building and that's where we go to discuss our terrorist activities. I believe that's what some people have an impression of.
So let me ask you this. If I start reading about the 3%ers, especially, and we'll get to that within the segment of the House Committee on Domestic Terrorism. So dispelling the initial rumors are you a white supremacist group?
Absolutely not. I have seen people walk in this life from every genre of the ethnic spectrum. So if we accept short people, tall people, if you're fat, okay, I know a lot of fat 3%ers, and we love you any way that you come, any way, shape, or form. If you are black, white, if you're an Asian, if you're a Mexican, what we see you as, if you swear an oath to that Constitution as a 3%er, you are an American. And other Americans that are out there that haven't sworn an oath to the Constitution need your defense. And that's how I view the 3% movement, as not an organization, but a ideology of how to be a better American.
Of defending freedom of citizens, right?
Purposely defending the freedom of citizens, yes, against domestic enemies, and defending, first and foremost, our Constitution, which holds our government together and creates a valued government, so we can conduct business in society in a peaceful manner.
So I want to be real clear, right? Because one of the things with dispelling the myths of the media, of the mainstream media, is one of the things that bother me is putting people or groups of people in convenient buckets.
Yes.
So one of the things that I read this week, and we'll get into the video from C-SPAN, that one, you're not an organization. So in order for, let's assume for a moment that I wanted to join the 3%ers, there's nowhere that I'm going to have a dues card, a club card, a commander in chief, or whatever this hoopla is that, like Boy Scouts, right? I mean, I'm not going to or whatever, or the Catholic Church. I mean, the Catholic Church is an organization. The Boy Scouts are an organization. The Three Percenters are a movement. They aren't an organization. Is that correct?
I believe that is the best way to state that. And yes, there are chapters that people, just like motorcycle clubs. If you drive a Harley Davidson, are you part of the Harley Club, of America? No, there's different chapters and organizations regarding motorcycle riding.
And that's kind of a good point to make when we talk about any type of a club, a group of people who are working together to achieve a common goal. That you're in Ohio, as an example. I'm in Minnesota, where the group that you would be a part of versus the group that I would be a part of, we may have completely different ideals or
Yes.
completely different objectives. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what people like to do is put labels and, like you were talking about, buckets. Okay, demographics matter. What's going on in one city is not necessarily what is going on in another. There is very peaceful cities still in America. However, there are some very upset communities in America right now for good reasons. And so how we respond in those cities has to be different. It isn't a blanket format. This is how we do things.
Sure.
Must be different in every city and state.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, obviously, the ideals and objectives for any particular group have to fit the demographic from which they operate in. So some of the other things that I've read or watched or whatnot on the internet, and just even recently, they're talking about the Boogaloo Boys and they're talking about the Oath Keepers and trying to lump all of these people into a convenient group so that they can pass social policy or policy based on social objectives. And it's kind of a tragedy when you look at it that from what I see as the independent, as the outsider looking in, is you have a group of people who are very passionate about maintaining the rights and freedoms of others. I want to lead into the conversation that you and I had a few days ago based on the activities of the thing that you guys did in Columbus, Ohio. So you guys got a permit to be able to show up and exercise your First Amendment rights. And what happened?
Okay, so that necessarily wasn't a 3% rally per se, okay. But that's necessarily what we're talking about. It's a patriot movement and organization. In theory, the organization is made of patriots. So did we sign on the dotted line? Yes, this is a 3% rally. No, that's not how that operates. But people within the community got together and to discuss openly, what is going on in America regarding this terrorism on our streets. Okay. And what is so-called terrorism. Peaceful rallies are what they are meant to be, is peaceful, using your First Amendment rights. And where our rights are derived from is we'll get into later. But the rally went a little astray. At one point in the rally, there was a little scuffle, but that's what they'll focus on in the media, is a little scuffle between, a couple of different organizations that are loosely affiliated or not even affiliated with our movement and patriotism. There are some movements out there that are affiliated in more anarchist type movements. And
so what was the objective at the beginning before the event happened? What was the intent? What were some of the activities? What were some of the objectives that your group, your movement was trying to push out? Right. So we had talked about a few days ago, what was it that you were trying to do versus what ended up happening? What was the initial intent and activities surrounding Columbus, Ohio?
Okay, so at first it was supposed to be, hey, bring your kids, we're going to do snow cones, okay? Gentleman that orchestrated this, I certainly was involved in the orchestration of that event. There's events going on in Columbus, Ohio, routinely, and they're by patriot groups, they're by Black Lives Matter groups. There's many different groups that want to speak on those steps. So this particular one, though, off the top of my head, was about discussing the violence going on in the streets, the terrorism going on in the streets, and how to counteract that. And these are just community members. They weren't necessarily, hey, I'm calling myself a 3%er and I'm coming to this rally just for that purpose. These are just people from all walks of life, that are patriots. So I think I want to move away from the term 3%ers into the term, let's discuss what patriotism is and who are the patriots that are going to show up.
Sure.
And I think we attract that as a collective. We're attracting people like that.
So you show up to an event at, let's define that as patriots, because I think that's important. I mean, I call myself a patriot all the time.
Yes.
I don't narrow myself into a group or a box, or I always exercise my right to not necessarily put myself in a group. Okay, and that's what I do. So ideally, the event was surrounding people who love their country, right?
Yes.
They love their country. They love democracy. They love the idea of the Constitution and free, and all rights, First Amendment right, Second Amendment right, and creating or promoting this idea of loving one another and, loving your country too. Is that correct?
Yes. And at the event, required a police line behind the rally to guard against the counter protesters who, by all authority, they are part of the government as well. They should be there. They should be there exercising their freedoms. What I'm saying as a country, how the rally should go is be respectful of one another, allow, and we've often done this where we've had opposition come up on the podium in Columbus, and we've invited them up there to speak, to speak their mind, because they obviously want to say something, but let's not yell over top of one another so that they cannot be heard. Okay.
Which is what ended up happening. Is that correct?
There was an attempt to do that. It wasn't successful. And that's an unfortunate scenario where we need to have police to push back a line of people that want to talk over the speaker that was up there. And if you want to debate, hey, let's have a debate. Let's sit down a date, okay, and let's bring all different factions on the podium. Let them speak. Let's all hear that together in unity.
So listen and create common ground.
Yes.
And progress initiatives. That sounds.
Yes, because what the government is witnessing is they're seeing two different opinions in the streets, and they're one line is here, one line is there. One is very aggressive, and one is not so aggressive, but gives the appearance of authority. Because you'll see, plenty of security around these rallies. There's armed men around these rallies, exercising the Second Amendment, and for good reason. They're reminding the representatives of this government who the rightful government is. We consent authority to representatives. We do not give up our rights to representatives. So we are the rightful government. All the people that were at the rally opposition and people on the stage are the rightful government. Okay. And when we have a government of the people, by the people, then those voices need to be heard, because that's what steers the democratic process. But it also needs to adhere to a Republican form of government, okay, which is what we require in the United States, and what we consent to is a Republican form of government, which means adherence to the Constitution. And those that oppose the Constitution, that are office holders that violate their oath, the three percenters, oath keepers, all the other patriot organizations, their main interest is to make sure that everybody's rights are protected.
So what one of the things that we're going to get into in the C-SPAN, the subcommittee conversation that happened, I think it was like 4 or 5 days ago, is they mentioned that the ideology and the reason why these groups are extremist groups is because they believe in killing police officers, and overthrowing the entire ideals of the government. And that kind of struck a nerve with me, because I can't remember a single conversation we've ever had that that there was a conversation surrounding lethal force against police officers. That seems kind of ludicrous, doesn't it?
I have heard this in the media, that this is, and I don't know where this is coming from. Okay, but here's the thing: police officers that are patrolmen, that are out on the streets, they're doing their jobs. Okay, they're the revenue generators for the state. They're doing what they're told to do, and they're doing a wonderful job at that, of doing what they're told. And so what I see is those people that are doing what they're told are not a threat to society. Okay.
Let, let me ask you this.
Why would anybody want to harm them if they're not a threat to society? There are some bad actors out there, and we're calling them out right now, I think, as a country, aren't we?
Sure. I think there's bad actors. You and I have had that conversation before. Just because somebody's a Catholic priest doesn't mean they're a kid toucher. Just because somebody signs up to be a Boy Scout leader doesn't mean they're doing it as a predator to prey on young boys. There are people, there is a small group or a small percentage of people that are always going to try and use different devices and organizations, movements, whatever that is, in order to project themselves or be able to prey within that group, which is sad. I mean, but I think what I see and what I was watching, and it was just so unfortunate, is these Congress people. And these Congress people actually put themselves in a position where they were lumping everybody together. And these college professors, and I mean, we'll go into that here in a moment. But the Boogaloo movement, the three percenters, the oath keepers, they're all domestic terrorists.
And Proud Boys too. Don't forget the Proud Boys. Those are
in the Proud Boys, because anybody who doesn't fit our narrative, not mine, but our narrative being our elected officials, well, they're bad.
Yes, and they will use the media to weaponize against our citizenry, no matter what they like or don't like about you. And you're taking a small faction of people that are mostly lawyers that have never walked in work boots, and putting them into an office to dream up things that are so far beyond what's reality in our society, and to use tools that from the Southern Poverty Law Center, is that where that one of the experts came from? Okay, so what did she ever do? I don't know what she did in life, but I know what I stand for, and I know what I've done in life. And I've been a small business owner for a number of years. Have I had successes and failures? Absolutely. Do I have a liberal arts degree? No, I don't. I'm just a general, I'm a general high school dropout. Okay. That tried to make a way in this world, and America gave me a wonderful opportunity to go out and make a living for myself and now my family. And my family being, a few dogs and a wonderful, loving person at home that cares and respects me. So yeah, that's what I've been able to accomplish in America by being a good person.
Is there an opportunity within that group, right? Whether it's the 3%ers or the Oath Keepers or the Boogaloo Boys, and I'm sure there's other ones that I'm missing. The Proud Boys, and there's all these different movements happening. Is there an opportunity that potentially some bad apples will fall through the cracks or slip in, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when we organize to train to protect the Constitution, we would try our best that when we have friends getting together, you don't want bad friends in there, right? If you have a guy that's really racially motivated that says, hey, I want to be your friend, I want to come on trainings and learn how to defend my family in this country with you. Okay, well, gee, you don't really represent exactly what our friendship should look like. We're building a band of brothers to look out for one another in times in good times and in bad times. That's what this is, a band of brothers and sisters. And there's some wonderful people that will defend my life that I never knew before. And before joining into an organization, a loose fitted organization like ours.
Do you think that the 3%ers are creating teamwork? So when we define teamwork being a group of people working together to achieve a common goal, do you think that it's easy for legislators to be afraid of that because the 3%ers are doing things better than they are?
Absolutely. Because look, Congress can't work together. Your state legislators can't work together. They're trying to teach America how to unify. No, they're not. They're trying to teach division, which is the same thing that they do in the state houses. They divide each other and hate one another. And they're trying to make sure that we do that as a country as well. And that isn't what America is about. Okay. We can agree to disagree and on strong points of view. There are lines in the sand. Okay. There is lines in the sand. We are not a communist country. And if you want to perpetuate communist goals, or if you want to perpetuate racism, or if you want to perpetuate anything antithetical to freedom, complete freedom that we're supposed to have, that's granted by our Creator, then you're kind of opposed to liberty. You're kind of opposed to fairness, and you're kind of anti-American at that point. And when you get a team of people in Congress that are actually anti-American, we have a problem in this country. When you get a team in your state house that is anti-American, that seeks to create division, and they can never come together and agree on something that's for the common good, you have a failure of government, a failure. Okay.
So the biggest question I have for this segment of what we're talking about,
yes, sir,
is you have gone to these. I don't even know if I want to call it it's not a protest, or you've had these events, right? Let's just call it an event. And you've been you've been in close proximity to other people who may have extremely a complete opposite end of the spectrum opinions than you, right? Or your the people who are there with you. Have you ever gone to one of these events with the intent of hurting somebody?
Absolutely not. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Okay. That could be in my mind. Can I go on a tangent real quick, Brad?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm just going to do a little tangent here. Okay.
sure.
I believe in natural law. Natural law means the rights of all don't outweigh the rights of the individual. Okay. It's all together our rights. We have to, if we don't defend your neighbor's rights, you have no rights. Okay. So we are all in this together, and it's about loving your neighbor. You know, if you don't love your neighbor enough to care about him enough that his rights are being stripped away, who's going to care about your rights when they're being stripped away and you're being walked out the door in a paneled van or something? Okay. So when we go to a rally, and I'm not a big rally person at all. I'm not that guy that rah rah, we get, kitted up and go out there.
Sure.
God bless those people that are doing that, though. Okay. That isn't my cup of tea per se, but there are members that go out there and protect those people's liberties in that fashion, and they're needed. That isn't what this thing is completely all about. Okay. What I see patriotism is about look, the other day, and here's how lethal I am. Okay. Here's the man I am. I had a spider that fell into a pot in my closet. And I filled it up with water and I'm making oatmeal. I had to fish that spider out, Brad, because I was concerned that it was really against the law of nature to destroy that spider for no good reason, right?
Yeah, you're a better man than me. I stomp on them all, dude.
I know you do. And so does everybody, right? I used to be that stomping guy, right? I used to think, hey, your opinion doesn't matter, mine does, and I'm going to talk over you. And I used to be that way. We grow as human beings as we interact in society respectfully with one another. We grow over time. And that's what this is. It requires growth, and it's a learning experience for all of us. We're not typically used to being at rallies with one another, counter protesting, and all this stuff is new. We need to know how to work and engage with one another. And so that spider has a life because I chose not to stomp on it. Now, he's going to go out and kill mosquitoes for me. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I could have just ended the life of the spider and moved on with my day. However, he's going to create a family now, and guess what? I'm going to have less mosquitoes around my house. So
Sure.
I look at things far differently than I used to look at them. And it's just through human interaction and understanding people's point of view by listening. I think if we become better listeners with one another, then we're rewarded for that. And it creates a human love that we require, and it's part of us. It's the same thing that we need to feel as individuals. It's sustenance for our mind and soul. And when we have all this divisiveness, it interferes with our body's electrical system and how to function properly in society. And there's people breaking down from that.
Sure.
So I think what the Congress doesn't understand is people need human interaction. They need positivity from our representatives to encourage them to get together. And I think what we hear from the representation is, hey, guys, you need to hate this group. You need to hate that group because they're racist. Let's build this narrative in the media so that, we alienate one group or the other. No, let's hear all sides and hear the validity of the arguments,
It's kind of funny because you hit a hot button. One of the things, I mean, and you and I have talked about this before, but my grandfather, World War II vet, I maybe had an interaction of 2 paragraphs a year with my grandfather. He just didn't have a lot to say. But one of the things that he told me when I was young, I think I was I don't know, probably 13, 14 years old, and I was down visiting him for 2 weeks. And he said something that I didn't even understand at the time, and didn't even understand it probably until I was, gosh, probably in my 30s. Is he said, as long as lawyers are in Congress, your rights will never be represented; they'll be litigated and negotiated. And I didn't understand that when he said it. I mean, I was like, I was thinking, Grandpa, you're kind of a Fruit Loop, right? What does that even mean? But as I started watching and seeing what was happening, and I pick on all of them, right? And I get a lot of hate from the right and a lot of hate from the left, generally more so from the left than the right. But there's haters on either side, and they have such a herd mentality that they're so stuck on whether they're Team Ohio State or Team Michigan at this point. You know what I mean? And I tell everybody I'm just tired of watching the same Ohio State Michigan game. I don't want to join a political gang. I don't want to join the Bloods or the Crips. I just want everybody to be happy and be able to exercise their freedoms and their rights and be happy and all of that stuff, right? So it's interesting because I get a lot of flack, right? Or I think they call it shade, right? I mean, people throwing shade or giving me flack about the fact that why can't we, I don't think I've ever asked you what your political party preference was, and I don't care. Have I ever said, Paul, are you a Republican? I don't think I've ever said that, have I? Oh, I think we lost Paul.
Hang on.
Oh, yep, you there?
Yes, sir. Bradley, can you hear me?
Hear me now, Paul? Yep.
Yes.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Had some technical difficulties. I was just explaining that last year you gave me a copy of the Constitution for my birthday. It was kind of surprising. But anyways, let's move on to the next segment. You ready? So have we defined, is it fair that we've defined that the 3%ers are not a white supremacist, extremist, domestic terrorist group? Is that safe to assume that we've dispelled all of those myths?
I think that those buckets have a lot of holes in them, Brad. Yes, I think that's just a terrible grouping of patriot type people, community.
Is it safe to assume that from what, and I have more limited knowledge than you do, is it safe to assume that the Boogaloo Boys, the Proud Boys, I'm missing one, the Oath Keepers, those also are not white supremacist, extremist, domestic terrorist groups?
Not at all. Not that I'm aware of. Of anybody that I've been affiliated with, we would denounce that. The people that I know that are in more, facilitators of meetings and stuff like that, they would denounce that type of behavior at any of the meetings. They would denounce type of violence, aggression and violence. We're a defensive. We're in a defensive position. Yeah.
And then the last question that I have is as you're going through the practice of defending the liberties, freedoms of citizens, would a decision be made to not protect the rights of someone based on their race, culture, creed, sexuality, or political affiliation?
No, no, there would not be that scenario, especially a citizen that's not an office holder. You know, an office holder we hold a higher level,
Yep.
but a citizen,
We're gonna
no,
talk, we're gonna
no
talk.
organization is ever wanted to harm a U.S. citizen that I'm aware of.
We're going to talk about in the C-SPAN as we move into the next segment about legislators and everything else. So I'm trying to give a segue into the C-SPAN part.
I got you.
All right, so let's move on to that, right?
Sorry, I'm so fired up over it, you know.
Yeah, it's easy.
I mean, America is called Paul Kras a domestic terrorist. Okay, and I don't like that.
Isn't that sad? I
yes.
mean, I'm let me see. I'm not gonna. Well, I will. So I'm gonna share a different screen here for just a second. So I'm gonna move this over, and we're gonna talk about C-SPAN for a moment. So C-SPAN, they had this House hearing on countering domestic extremist groups, and it's a long video, right? I mean, I think it's like an hour and a half or so, hour and 25 minutes. And so I go through and I watch this, and I'm just picking up on these idiosyncrasies that are happening. And I would encourage anybody who watches this show that, you know, as a patriot, you need to watch something like this, because you're going to see firsthand how people feel about what's happening. Okay. And I'm going to give some key talking points, if you don't mind, Paul. I'm going to kind of lead you in a direction for a moment. So one of the things that happens immediately in the video, and I don't know these people's names. I don't really care what their names are, but what I saw was a bunch of legislators and a bunch of academics trying to show cause as to why they should label all of these groups into an extremist bucket, right? And I heard white supremacy, I heard racism, I heard all of these things. And there were, I mean, literally, and I'm gonna probably get a little bit fired up here too. There were so many opportunities to lose your mind in what some of these people said, because what they said was, we need to do something because we're scared.
Yes.
We're scared that they're right and we're the elitist and they are just the sheep.
Yes, the sheep are the government, though, Brad, and that's who they're going after. And unfortunately, that is terrorism on the citizenry. And I just, it's disgusting to me. If you want to talk about terrorism, who has the most advantage to terrorize a society? Did the 3%ers shut your business down last week because they were scared of a virus? Okay. Did they destroy a family business that's 30 and 40 years old?
And we're going to touch on it. We're going to touch on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I promise. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So this one lady, her name is JJ McNabb. She made a statement in this video where the Boogaloo Boys, or the Boogaloo movement, and the Oath Keepers, and all of these other groups are such fringe groups, and they're calling them groups, that they could potentially have two different factions of Boogaloo Boys show up, and their ideals are so different that they would potentially be shooting at each other. Okay?
That's true.
I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Did I really just hear that you're actually trying to put them it's such extreme opposites of each other? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was just the whole thing. As I watched it, I was like, man, these people are off their rockers. Okay.
This is evidence here, Brad, of an hour and a half of how out of touch these people are really with reality. Okay. I mean, reality, like, how are you going to put food on the table next week? These people know? Really?
Yeah, they're lost. I mean, you know, and that's part of it, right? So, you know, part of what they were talking about is, you know, the reason why these things are rising up is because because of COVID and quarantine, or they use the word lockdown. That was great. I loved the fact that they used the word lockdown.
Yeah,
That
like we're in a prison. Okay, they believe
yeah,
they're controlling a prison here.
you're you're
Honestly,
you're a prisoner in your own house. And I thought about it and I said, what's amazing is everybody on this video is still getting a paycheck. Where
absolutely. They did not skip a beat, my friend. Every judge did not skip a beat.
right,
Every attorney, everybody that's trying to prosecute these cases for not wearing a mask is getting a paycheck while you're sitting there out of work or waiting for your unemployment check that hasn't shown up yet. Yeah, and this is the folks that are supposed to look out for our safety. What's not safe is you know losing everything you have and then getting sick on top of it. that's
sure,
that's that's a real bad position to be in. At least you might be able to afford. I had to drop my health insurance, just so because I couldn't afford health insurance and not have customers. Okay, so I
sure,
mean, this is the kind of mentality these people have because they're living in their wonderful skyrise,
the
or
ivory.
their ivory towers, yeah, or the governor's mansion, and guess what? They've got wonderful health care, guys, and they're not paying for their own stuff, right? Because you're paying for it, and you're paying them to tell you that you're a terrorist now, and that kind of upset me a little bit to know that I paid these guys to tell me and my other friends and everybody in the Patriot organizations, and they named many, that hey, you guys that are actually producers that are doing something out there, that are trying to defend the Constitution and work at the same time and not get paid to defend the Constitution, you guys are terrorists. Okay, so I'm a little upset by that sentiment.
Sure.
I mean, I think everybody should be. I think everybody in this country damn well better should be upset by that sentiment right now, because that is disgusting behavior.
So the question, so as I was watching, and I always, as I'm watching a video, I will pause a video and ask myself how I'm feeling about something. Okay.
Mm.
So I
Yes.
go through and I'm watching this video and I don't know who half of these people are, but the lady JJ McNabb really stood out. There were some other ones, this Alyssa Slotkin, and I think it's this Heidi Byrich, and I mean they're all equally, I guess, despicable, because some of my takeaways from it, okay, and I'm getting up on my soapbox for just a moment, is one, they're afraid. The lady from Michigan, especially, she's so afraid because they have 27 extremist groups, and she just puts all of them into the same category. There's 27 extremist groups in Michigan, and they all show up with guns.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, isn't that their Second Amendment right? I mean,
So the representative is afraid of their own government because we, the people, are the government.
sure. And I get a lot, again, getting attacked from the left or the right or whatever, right? And I always do this right here. Okay. Yep.
Mm.
Second Amendment, right? You're not seeing this, Paul. I'm holding up a handgun right in front of the screen.
Oh, I
Okay.
can see. I can see you. Yes.
Gotcha. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. And I don't understand, unless somebody is trying to cause disruption, going back to 1984 or Animal Farm or any of these, the naked communists. Why would you want to take away somebody's Second Amendment rights? Now, I don't carry my gun with me out in public, but at the same time, um, I respect the right of others to do exactly that. I mean, that is why those amendments and rights were put in place by the founding fathers, right? it
Yes.
it
Yes.
amazes me that these people, as you're going through, I mean, this lady, this Heidi Byrich, or I think it was the JJ I don't remember which one it was, but said, they said, well, we don't know that these groups aren't, they're all showing up with guns and we don't know who they are. And I'm like, it's not your fucking job to know who they are. They're citizens within the United States, and you can't treat them in a position of being an aggressor or an instigator until they show you that that's their methodology or intent. You can't just group all of these, and I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the Antifa, or you know what I mean. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
When it
Yeah.
comes right down to it, how poor is it of anybody to automatically place judgment on others, but at the same time say, no, you can't throw rocks at my glass house. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, I think about some of the things that I've heard in the news and the repetitive nature. And once you repeat a lie long enough, people start believing that lie. Okay, what we have to do as citizens is start taking our government back to the rightful consent that we gave it, okay, which is limited government. That is how this country was designed and set up. And it wasn't a top down theory either, okay? This is local grassroots from your local town all the way up to the federal government level. Um, let's not build a new agency, okay, that is a new counterterrorism agency. What are they preparing against? And why are these groups forming up now? Why is it that there are so many politically motivated groups?
Well,
It's because of the failures that have gone on in the state houses, in the local levels, and look at how they spend money. Okay, here let me tell you about my organization. Okay, it's at the kitchen table. It's called budgeting. They can't even do that successfully. Okay. And these are the people that are supposedly our government. When the government is the people and they rightfully have their ways and means to make money, they are the government that actually runs things from day to day. Okay. They can actually put food on their own tables. The government cannot even do that for themselves. They have to come to us and other countries outside of the United States to borrow money in order to do whatever they want to do. We
is,
need to. We're heading down a path that we can't come back from.
so isn't it amazing, right? One of my biggest, I guess, arguments with all of the government. And I don't remember who I said it to. It was I don't remember who I said it to. It was years ago, but I'm having this conversation with an elected official, and it'll come back to me. I just don't remember it right offhand, but I said, "Hey, man, I need you to do this," and he said, "Well, I don't remember his exact response." I said, "No, I wasn't asking." And there was this long pause, and I said, "I think you may have forgotten, but you work for me."
Yes.
And you could have heard a pin drop in the room. I was at a social networking event, or a professional networking event, and it was here in Minnesota. And literally, the response that I got from this person, and I really need to remember who it is, but they turned around and walked away because they couldn't respond to that. And there's this elitist attitude, where I think what has been forgotten is that when we elect any official, it doesn't matter what party they're in. When we elect an official, they are renting our vote. It's
Yes.
a lease, and there's this idea, and one of my biggest fights is the term limits, and I don't care who it is. When you've been in office, I am not a young dude, right? I'm not a young guy. I'm
Right.
44 years old. And when you've been in Congress longer than I've been alive, there's a problem. You know what I mean? The
Let me let me let me tell you what our elected officials that are at this level that are calling us domestic terrorists. Let me tell you what they all could agree on last time. Okay. In 1992, okay, Amendment 27, right, was proposed on 17, even back in 1789, this thing was proposed, but it took them 200 years. And they all could agree on this 200 years later, right?
Mhm.
We the people were any of you raising your hands for this? Let me ask you, because these people are like given a power of attorney to do our business of the nation. Okay, we're giving our power of attorney a consent and to do our business under the guise of a constitutional republic, right? They're supposed to be doing that. So the 27th Amendment, no law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall intervene. Now, that was so important, they had to pass an amendment so they wouldn't mess up their own pay, okay? That means we can't hold them accountable while they're in session. We can't say, hey, you guys failed. We're going to fine you.
They're almost like meteorologists. They can be wrong 80% of the time and still get paid.
Absolutely.
Job, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So and we got to move on a little bit. I mean, it's been almost 51 minutes on this show. So, we tend to lose a whole bunch of people as time goes on. And I'm going to stop the C-SPAN part because I would encourage anybody who watches this episode to watch that video and think for yourself. So I went in and I just looked at just basic initial objectives. And what I see is people saying, do as I say, not as I do. They're negatively impacting families and the welfare and most importantly, the American dream for a lot of people, because they're putting them in financial poverty or impoverished positions because of this, you're going to do what we tell you. And I don't think that most people agree with that decision at this point. We're seeing it in California where they're saying, hey, no, we're not doing this second lockdown because we just can't afford it. And then they're pushing it back, and that's a whole different episode. And then the federal side gets involved, and that's a whole different thing. But I want to talk about one of the ladies that was on this C-SPAN video was from the Southern Poverty Law Group, right? And we've all heard of them before.
Yes.
And so, they're throwing out all these terms. And as I'm watching a video, if I have any doubt as far as knowing exactly what the definition is of their particular use of a word, I'm going to look it up again, right? So I kept seeing alt-right. I mean, I probably heard the word alt-right used in that C-SPAN video at least 200, 300 times, or even maybe 1,000 times. I don't know. It was just so much that is like they're trying to drive this home, right? So I looked it up, and I don't know. Actually, I'll share the screen here so everybody else can see it. But I looked up Southern Poverty Law Center because the one lady, a witness, was from that group, and I thought to myself, now we're actually skewing things to fit a specific narrative if we're calling people from what potentially is not,
a bipartisan, any kind of bipartisan center.
Yeah. So I looked up the definition of alt-right, and sure enough, Southern Poverty Law Center pops up, and it says the alternative right, commonly known as the alt-right, is a set of far-right ideologies, groups and individuals whose core belief is that white identity is under attack by multicultural forces using political correctness and social justice to undermine white people and their civilization. Okay?
I challenge the millions of people that are going to be listening to this broadcast to come out and discuss what they believe openly with the Southern Ohio Poverty Law or Southern Poverty Law Center, because I don't know one person that thinks that way. And I've been around a lot of I guess Republicans, constitutionalists, even liberals that are not thinking like that. Anybody that's for freedom is a liberal, in my opinion, a traditional liberal.
Well, that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point that I'm getting at, Paul, is we established at the beginning of this.
Yes.
That anybody of any color, culture, any race, creed, sexual orientation, any of that,
right,
can become a 3%er.
Yes.
to join that 3% movement, but yet this group of politicians is trying to conveniently put them into this white supremacist group. And they keep using the term alt-right because I think the reason why alt-right is so popular is it sounds Nazi-ish, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it
You
sounds
know,
terrible, right? I mean, and of course that's the witness that you want to call upon, somebody from that place that says that everybody that's alt-right is this specific thing, because we know, because we went to college and we figured this out, right? And
so,
I don't know the background of these people, but like I said, they're out of touch with the common person that's just trying to feed their families and not be, picked up off the street for something in a protest, or something that they don't want their door kicked in with a no knock warrant. These are just common people that want that decency, and these are the people that are trying to take away from regular folk that actually make this country go. Um,
so I'm going to make
every freedom that
I'm
you
going to
can
make an
imagine.
accusation. You ready? Not
Yes,
towards.
sir.
I'm going to make an accusation towards SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, that they are a racist hate group.
Let's not do that. I mean, because let's not stoop to that level, Bradley. I mean, that's the problem. When one person does something, then you got to retaliate. No, let's hear them out. I want to shed light on the darkness, bro. Okay? This is the problem where you spread darkness over this land with your hate speech that you're using, um, from your experts that are lawyers that are so out of touch with society, but perhaps they want to further an agenda, whatever that agenda may be. It could be the communist pillars. It could be just some of their socialist ideologies.
But
Um, but when
isn't
you
it
start
isn't
bucketing people, that's a problem for me.
isn't it important to get their attention?
It
I
is important to get their attention, Bradley. And, I think this video do that because there's a lot of good people that are listening right now that are going to wake up and they're going to say, hey, I didn't realize we were under attack from these people today. And you know what? We all are, okay? Because I'm just a regular Joe. There's a lot of regular Joes out here that love America, that loves what this place represents, that's given them opportunity to take and build a family here, to build a home here. And
so
there's people out there trying to destroy that right now, and we need to wake up.
the reason why I did that was to incite emotional expression. Okay,
Oh, okay.
because in my mind, these groups, they're going out and they're saying you are this, you are that. You don't get to define me. I define myself. I define myself based on my actions, and this prejudgment of people. Now, one of the other things, again, I don't know if you can see my screen, but I went through their hate watch, right? This is
This
I
is so weird. I've never seen this before, but yeah, thank you.
so I went through their hate watch, and they have these hate maps, and they have all of this stuff, okay, and they're being used. This group, this SPL Center group,
Oh my
is
gosh.
being is being considered experts on a lot of things. Now, I started reading articles about this Jack Pacific, uh, rise to tide or rise tide to white supremacist movement. Okay,
Uh-huh.
and so I've looked into this guy, right, and I don't follow people who don't. I did a show on social hygiene. If they don't care about what I have to say, I really don't care to listen to them, right? And I think it's important for us to listen to each other, which is why I take this stance on social hygiene. But I start reading about this guy, and I start reading his posts on Parler and Twitter and all over the place. And here's a guy who, he's a conservative. I mean, it's obvious, and I don't want to call him a conservative because I don't know if I think he's a conservative. He seems to be conservative. But at the same time, everything that I read that he was pushing out was talking about family, was talking about religion in the home, was talking about patriotism, was talking about all of these things that somehow have to make him a white supremacist in their minds.
Do you think, Bradley, that there are people in this world that have the opportunity, the means, that are actually wanting to destroy this government from within, and that are actually in the government now, that are actually working in the government? Because I do. I believe that 100%, and I'm concerned about that. And these are the type of behaviors that I denounce. Okay. When you tear a person up, you better have a darn good reason to do it.
You've heard me say often that the pigs are living in the farmhouse.
Oh, yes. Like 1984. Yeah.
Animal Farm, right? So it all goes back to,
Animal Farm.
oust the farmers in this elitist group, and even though we have different points of view on certain things, I always say that the politicians have two goals. One is to get elected, and then the other is to stay elected. And then everything else is secondary or backseat, right? And I tend to pick on them for that reason. But I guess my point was pointing out this Southern Poverty Law Center, and I don't really read up on them, but it was amazing to me that if I compared what they were saying to the people, right? In this case, this Jack, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but anyhow, if you were comparing what they were saying to what you actually can see with your own eyes, it was such a polar opposite of what their claims are.
Or one of the leaders that facilitates some of the militia activity. I know for a fact that he has Hispanic and Black right in his family. He's one of the leaders. Okay, but that is one of the groups that's claimed to be racist. Okay, how the heck can you be racist when you've got a kid that's Black or Hispanic or whatever, and your wife's Black or Hispanic? I forget which one. I don't look at that in people. I look at people as Americans, and if this feels un-American to you, when these people are out there spreading their hate against other people, it is un-American. Okay, that's an un-American thing to do. We're here to love one another, man. And these people that promote that in offices of government, they're held to a higher level. They're promoting hate against me. They're promoting hate against you, Bradley, as a patriot. They're promoting hate against the oath keepers that have bled for this country. Okay, in foreign lands.
That's kind of interesting too.
I'm losing my mind over it.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating that one, that these things are being missing or are intentionally being placed out in front of people for buy-in, for this disingenuous.
They're playing us all. They're playing us all.
Absolutely, divide and conquer, and
yes.
The strength of people is, I think we have the ability to cross over and find common ground, bridge the gap. I think we can actually do that better than our elected officials at this point. Right?
Oh, 100%, because we're a better government than they are, honestly.
Sure.
Okay. As a collective of people, we get stuff done in America. We create the economy here. Okay. We were doing an awesome job. Who messed it up? They did, not us. Okay. They messed it up because we had to follow their rules. Right. So, okay, I understand COVID's dangerous and their people are being harmed. And I feel desperately terrible for the families that have been harmed by that disease. And I pray that thing goes away ASAP. Okay. But my goodness, there is a constitutional republic here. Okay. And it's guided for good reason to not be so reactional over light things. We as a people can't be that reactional to tear down the government. Okay. Yep. We have a constitutional republic. It needs to be defended. It needs to be 100% a republic and not just something made up creatively because we have a living and breathing constitution, which I believe is complete bullshit. We have a document that says what the government, that is to restrain the government. It is not to grant us rights. One iota does that document grant us anything. We're inherently on this planet with rights. and no man can take those away under natural law. However, we do consent some of our authority to representatives that have to be restrained by the Constitution, or they are criminals. They are criminals in office right now, and everybody's afraid to arrest them or talk about the elephant in the room.
So somebody said yesterday something, I think it was on Parlor, and I read it and I said, wow, that is genius. Okay. And I haven't shared it with you yet. So I want your thoughts on this. And then we got to move over to one other thing because we literally have like 15 minutes left.
Yes, sir.
The statement that they made was that the Constitution isn't convenient, it's a requirement.
That's a profound statement, isn't it?
Or sorry, I said that wrong. The Constitution isn't a matter of convenience, it's a requirement. That was the statement that they made. And I said, wow, that is.
Yes. I understand that sentiment wholeheartedly. Okay. I believe that with everything that I have in me. And these representatives don't, Bradley. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And anybody that does not, and they raise their hand to be in office, and they say, hey guys, we're going to do this, we're going to follow the law. They're lawless when they come up with these laws, and then they talk to the judiciary, and the judiciary, hey, he wants that next job, he's going to get promoted or appointed to this bench and that bench if he just goes along to get along. That judge is a criminal too. Okay. And I'll tell you right now, if we keep on going down this path, we'll have an entire criminal government. Then we'll be, excuse me, go ahead.
It's a dangerous path, I think, is the statement that you're trying to make. I mean, there's a point of no return where we've sacrificed so many liberties and freedoms and everything else that we just can't turn around. We can't get back to the point of sanity.
We can only obey one master, okay?
Yep.
And that master should be a creator, okay? What has happened in America, okay, should have never happened, because we had a wonderful thing going. The founders set up a beautiful system where we could all live free and get along together and have safety and security here, okay? You know, they guaranteed us, hey, we're not going to get invaded by foreigners. You know, foreign invasions coming across the land. We need a navy for that. But what they did guard against was standing armies, you know, and that's why militiamen, Minutemen in the past, they were just regular people like me and you, and that's because we didn't want a military so strong that we were out there conquering other countries. We just want to live here in peace, man, and get along and trade with other countries. Free trade, right? I mean, what's wrong with that? Why do we have to create this superiority over the whole world that you know has a tendency to backfire on us at every turn, right?
Yeah, that's a whole different hour, man.
I agree. I
want to give you some time. I want to hear your thoughts on the Second Amendment. I know that's important to you.
Oh, yes.
And I want to end the show with the Second Amendment, right? Because what I see is that we are in a terrible potential tragedy of that not being a freedom in the future.
Oh no, they're never going to go after your Second Amendment rights. You know, here's the thing. Look at the Second Amendment, okay? What does that say, Bradley?
It says, in short, the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay, I'm going to read this a little bit differently than what most people perceive the Second Amendment. So just bear with me, because I want to give you a different perception of the Second Amendment that maybe you haven't heard before, maybe you have. But if you look at what a well-regulated militia is, being necessary to the security of free state, shall not be infringed upon, okay? The right of the people to keep and bear arms. So the people are the security of a free state, okay, they're necessary because they need to be well regulated in what they do. So when we talk about militia, it sounds like a really severe word, like, oh man, he's like some kind of weird, Al Qaeda terrorist insurgent. They're training to take over the government. Oh my goodness, that's what people start thinking, and that is so far from the truth. If you want to live in the law, okay, and I do, it's necessary in order for freedom to have a militia that's well regulated. Our conversations on who is, and you and I differ on opinion on who is the militia. I say it's the people because I come from the Constitution and I read this and I say, hey, remember what the Second Amendment says. It says the people have the right to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. It's as simple as that.
Right.
So going through this backward and forward, you can't just bear arms without being a well-regulated militia. We have to practice. We have to prepare for what's coming. We have to engage and meet with other men, train with other men, because that's what makes us well-regulated in our craft. Okay? So by doing that, what do we receive? We receive security for a free state. Isn't that what everybody wants? They want security right now. They want to feel safe, okay? And they want freedom. Security and freedom is what the Second Amendment's about. It's not about firearms.
Why do you think that the mainstream media is trying to transition people's belief of the Second Amendment from security to fear?
Because we go along with them on it. We go completely along with their narrative, okay? We need to start creating our own narratives as patriots and get back to the truth, the fundamentals, and the truth and the fundamentals are real simple things. They're not real complicated. When you start having really complicated things and people are spreading lies about racism, okay, that doesn't even exist, by the way, in many shapes and forms that they portrayed it as, then you go back to the basics, and then we can begin to build upon that. When you build your foundation on sand, then you cannot come together as a country because you're in constant state of confusion. It's almost like that's what the media wants you in, because they want to distract with smoke and mirrors what's really going on behind the big curtain, right? Okay, this is like the Wizard of Oz. There's a big wizard behind the curtain, and guess what? All those people in those offices are failures. They really are. They need to step out from their ivory towers, because when they go after all of our rights, including the Second Amendment, they are disgusting. They are not American. They are a blight on this society, because I consider them equivalent to child molesters in their thoughts, because they have so much impact on our future generations of children, and they should be treated as such. Okay, they should be considering their words and their actions in law, because any law enforcement officer that wants to enforce law against the Second Amendment knows they're doing the wrong thing. Okay, they know they are. But it's hard, Brad. These people have families too. They're out on the streets just trying to be a patrolman. They're trying to do their job. And who's making their job hard? Oh my gosh, the politicians are making a law enforcement's job impossible to do. Impossible.
It's kind of funny, because I said this, I think it was yesterday or the day before. I said that I feel sorry for police officers right now. I think about, I was in the Army, and I went into places where they didn't want us. But I don't even think then it was so in your face. How many times can you stand in front of somebody who hates you for a reason that they don't even understand, who's told to hate you, who's told to that you're all of these terrible things when, regardless of anything, right? I mean, the Hispanic officer in New York City who was slammed, like body slammed by a dude, and the officers in Chicago who were hospitalized and all that. Who the hell would want to be a police officer right now? In in the legislators, the elected officials, and the media have caused us to hate something that is so terrible. You know what I mean? That here's this man or woman or whatever police officer that we're putting them in a position where they're they're potentially afraid to go to work because
Their job is not the job that they're doing is not really their job. You know what their job is? Their job is to keep the peace. Okay, they're supposed to be peacekeepers, and
sure.
blessed be the peacekeepers. However, they are not peacekeepers. They are law enforcement. That's the narrative that's changed in the society. They used to be peacekeepers, Brad, and that's when we lived in peace as a society, and we weren't like destroying the country, tearing down stuff. That used to be peaceful because the law enforcement officers say, hey, you're infringing on this guy's rights. Stop that. Hey,
Right.
you're infringing on this guy's rights. Stop that.
But
Now,
could
what are we doing? They're revenue generating because the politicians have made them that way. They've created these narratives for the police officers that are impossible to live up to.
but look,
The police are committing suicide at the same rate that our military veterans are,
let,
and probably higher.
let's take the politics out of it for just a moment, okay? Because I mean, I sat there and I was watching this video and I saw this police officer on camera or in the video, and I'm not going to point out the video because there's certain things that I saw, and you and I have had these conversations before, but I saw this look that is an unmistakable look in this police officer's eyes as they were dealing with this protest stuff, and I said that is the look of absolute fear. Okay, absolute fear that they're walking into a situation and they don't know if somebody's going to ambush them or shoot them or whatever that is, and I felt bad for them. You know what I mean? Because they've just been put in such a terrible position, unbelievable position, that what they signed on for versus where they're at in their current environment is is so opposite. You know what I mean? And
It's disheartening to me, and I used to come. I came from a different viewpoint in the past about this. I used to kind of blame police officers that, hey, they're not doing enough, But the common police officer, he just has to be able to do his job, and they've made their job impossible by riling up society because with all these crazy laws, they're unenforceable. Okay, they're and then they're the laws that they should be enforcing, which is protection of the common property of the welfare of the state. That property should be protected and not destroyed. And their mayors are telling them, "Hey, go ahead and let them burn down the police station." Right?
yeah, it's
I
like
mean, come on. I
it's
mean,
like
how can you do that job, man?
right, exactly. Their hands are being tied in, and that's a whole different thing. I don't want to get off on a tangent, because I literally it'll be another hour at that point if we
Yes,
start
sir.
talking about that. But getting back to the Second Amendment rights, I guess one of the things that I wanted to point out, and one of the fallacies that is just beyond me as a veteran, and we've had conversations on both sides of this too, Paul. But the idea of this fear mongering that's happening from the media regarding Second Amendment rights, and I just it's
They're
got
going against militias, Brad. They're going against militias. They're saying, "Hey, you can't be a militia." Well, it says right in the Second Amendment we're supposed to be a militia, guy. 1909, the Dick Act came in, and that's what sort of like curtailed the militia movement. They said, "Hey, we can do this better. We're the government. We can do this a little better, and we're gonna, create this separate organization. It's going to be just controlled by the governor." And you guys just stay at home, do your jobs, don't worry about protection of America. We got this. We got this. Okay? Don't worry about it, guys, because hey, those guys are going to protect it now, right? Because you guys are paying your dues. You got your social security numbers now. You're going to pay your dues, and then we got this security thing under control. And then people just said, hey, cool, we got this. We can go to work, not worry about it. And then here we are now, right? We got the whole world looking at us, and they hate us because of politicians that have said wrong things. We got the whole world looking at us because we're kind of selfish. And you damn well better be aware that these small, when the money gets messed up, you need to be able to protect yourself, and money's getting messed up. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's no coins at the grocery store or the gas station. So money is getting scarce. So if you can't pay your soldiers out there, you better wise up and learn to protect yourself, because the government supposedly protects you is no longer protecting you. It says right in the Second Amendment that's what you're supposed to be doing. So, you gotta think about that.
Yeah, I think a well defended society is one that can stand strong.
Yes.
So, all right, we're gonna round this down, man. It's been an hour and 20 minutes. That's a long time for people to watch, and I
appreciate everybody listening.
I look forward to our future conversations. Maybe not even on episodes. You and I have talked about doing this for weeks or months.
Yes.
Of putting this episode together, and it's kind of tough because I mean, as soon as you take that step forward and say anything against this narrative, that this just unbelievable garbage, you're a target. And I get hate mail all the time. I mean, I love it. Right? I mean, I love the publicity of people getting pissed off, because in my mind, at least they're thinking. They don't have to agree with me, but at least I cause them to think. And maybe that one little thought, right? But we've had the conversations about a lot of things, and I appreciate you taking that step forward, because I think it's important. I think there's a lot of people out there that need to understand what reality is. And I think you brought a lot of that to light.
Thank you, Brad, for having me on the show. I really appreciate that opportunity to speak out to the folks. And I hope more people speak up when they see injustices. I hope more people speak up when they see criminal politicians passing laws that should never be. So I hope we all stand together. Black, white, Hispanic, everybody, Asians, if you're from the planet Pluto, come on down. You're welcome. I'll love you like a brother if you're willing to stand for the Constitution of the United States and hold these politicians that are out of touch accountable. We're all willing to love you like a brother, and a sister. There's many of us out there. And don't forget, America, that we're here for you, and that we're willing to sacrifice everything, including our lives. Our sacred honor is been devoted to giving out to this country in a pact that we will defend it.
It's awesome, man. We'll talk later. We'll do this again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.